Hello, Star Trek fans. We are ReBingeIt, and this is the Star Trek Prodigy podcast. My name is James.
And my name is Kim. And we are watching and overanalyzing every episode of Star Trek Prodigy like true Star Trek geeks. Hit it. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 2, Episodes 13 and 14.
Yes.
A Tribble called Quest and Cracked Mirror. And we are also doing something very different today.
Yes, we are.
Probably sound a little bit different.
Well, Kim does.
Yes, I probably sound different. For the first time, we are not in the same house, same building to record.
Or on the same continent.
We are not on the same continent. I am in Glasgow, Scotland. We are recording with a microphone I took with, so I don't have my normal microphone. I don't have my fancy podcast booth. I'm just in a hotel room. I'm in the heart of Glasgow. It's actually quite noisy. I'm on the 5th floor of my hotel, but Glasgow is a very, shall we say, vibrant, busy city. So you might hear some noises in the background, but
Yes.
We'll do our best to still make a good podcast.
Our first international recording.
Yes. And we are 8 hours apart, I believe. So
Yes.
We're not even in the same time zone. We're still on the same planet, but that's about it.
This is very exciting. It's a whole new world.
We're not 100% confident that it will work, but we're going to give it a shot.
Yeah, we're going to give it a go.
I didn't bring this microphone all the way here for nothing. We're going to make it work.
It's going to happen.
Before we talk about this one, anything to say about the last episodes, which were the ones with Chakotay and getting off the Hell Planet or Murder Planet or whatever it was called?
P-Class Nightmare.
The P-Class Nightmare. Thank you, Jankum Pog.
No, they were quite good. I did enjoy them. They weren't outstanding, but they were fun episodes.
You know, there's not been a bad episode yet this season.
No, there really
They've
hasn't.
all been good. Yeah, they've been varying degrees of good or great.
Yes.
Yeah, so...
I did like the second part more than you did.
Yeah, that's true. I enjoyed the first part a little bit more, but still, great episodes.
Yes.
And then today marks the sort of end of the watch ahead that we did because episode 14 is the one that we saw at Comic-Con.
Yes, it is.
And so we have not seen any farther than that. So at least we go back to kind of the new episodes to us in the next watching.
Yep.
Well, should we get started?
I think we should.
All right.
And you lead off.
Here come the notes of a Tribble called Quest from Glasgow. We open with a log from Rock Talk talking about how stars are born in the cosmos. And the scene here is absolutely beautiful, the way that it's shot. And we know we ended last week with Dal saying we need to make a star. And Rock Talk here says to make a special star to power the protostar drive, they need a special kind of matter. The perfect matter, bosonite. And they found an M-class planet with a good supply, so they're headed there. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to be that easy.
No, it's Prodigy. It's going to be difficult.
Absolutely. Down on this planet, it looks pretty deserted with what looks like giant fossils everywhere, which is, I mean, that's a bad sign. And Jankum says, look at this place. Can't we ever go to a nice planet? No, you can't.
No, you can't. I'm with Jankum there. It's like, can you go somewhere nice? Go somewhere with a beach, you know?
No, you're doomed to go to these terrible places because that's where they need help, right?
At least it's not a P-Class Nightmare.
The other thing that's funny here is Chakotay is still wearing this shirt that's full of holes. I mean, can you not get a nicer shirt? Come on.
It's his comfort shirt. This is his, I'm happy with this shirt.
I mean, the replicators must be working.
No, he's wearing this shirt because it's his happy one.
Oy. Well, anyway, he says, nature is out of balance. And I assume he's using those, you know, the sensors in his eyes.
Oh, right. Yes, like the asteroid of stupid.
Yeah, you need to watch Voyager to get that joke. And, you know, the people who made this show, they'll probably get that joke. While we search for bosonite, a fuzzy creature rolls out from behind a rock, and Rock Talk picks it up because she recognizes it as a tribble.
Yes.
But it immediately turns into 2 tribbles. And she says they multiply rapidly and have voracious appetites and are an invasive species capable of consuming planets to the brink of starvation.
Which it does look like they've done here.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a genius, right, to look around here and assume that we got a tribble problem.
Yeah, they've eaten everything. To quote McCoy, they're born pregnant.
Right. Chakotay says a tribble outbreak once brought the Klingon Empire to its knees, which was one of the jokes in the original series.
Yes.
When they first introduced the tribble.
Quote Odo from Deep Space Nine when Worf talks about the Empire's campaign against the Tribble. Odo calls it the Great Tribble Hunt.
It's a long-running Star Trek joke, and I like that we're making it even longer here.
Yes.
There are very quickly 5 tribbles now on Rock Talk, and then one of them surprisingly bites her, and she drops it. She drops all the tribbles, and she says, tribbles don't have teeth. So that's not good.
First sign that things are going badly.
Yeah, though, how do they consume planets if they don't have teeth? I don't know. It's confusing.
They gum them to death.
I guess. They just swallow them whole. Well, the little ones all roll away, and they come back with a much bigger tribble, which growls at them and starts chasing the crew.
Again, something we've never seen before. Giant tribbles.
No, or them growling.
Good point.
Or did they growl at the Klingons? I can't remember how that worked. They reacted badly to them.
Yeah, they reacted badly to the Klingons.
Murph leads everyone over a cliff, landing on a ledge below, providing a way for everyone else to kind of slide down.
Yep.
And he also stretches out and grabs Dal when Dal goes over the edge, like he could have done in last week's episode, but didn't, as we talked about.
Exactly, reinforcing my point that Murph looked at Chakotay and went, yeah, we don't need him anymore.
We don't need him. What do we need him for?
Yeah.
Well, the tribbles all fly over the edge and the crew climbs back up. And they realize that Zero was left behind and is actually badly injured.
Yeah, he's been crushed by a giant tribble.
Right. And they're learning what pain feels like. As we hear bones crack, it's very disturbing.
Ugh. Yeah, that was not pleasant.
No. Jankum, already fed up with his planet, beams back to the protostar with Zero.
Yeah, Jankum's great. He's had enough.
He's like, I'm out of here.
I like the way Jankum seems to have this tolerance level. And he's like, yeah, I'm done with this.
Yeah. He's very much a nope kind of person.
In some ways, it kind of reminds me of Miles O'Brien. He has a, I'm done messing around with things.
Well, they're engineers, not explorers.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. Is there something for me to fix here? Nope. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the ship.
This is now just nonsense. I'm going back.
Now we have a new problem. A surprise Klingon appears telling them to leave the planet or die. This is very dramatic, but he isn't as threatening as he first seems to be.
Well, I don't think it was covered why the universal translators didn't work. Because he speaks Klingon to them, and Gwyn has to translate.
Well, I think she mentions it's a particular dialect. And maybe that particular dialect just isn't in the translator, or it just takes the translator, a minute to learn it, right? Because we've seen that before. It's also possible that once he realizes that they don't understand him, he just switches to normal Klingon or something, I think there's lots of headcanon you could take. and it's also kind of a weird scene because he appears with a phaser and you're like, oh, he's threatening, but he's probably just saying the tribbles are going to eat you if you don't get off this planet.
That's interesting because I was wondering about that. He seemed a little aggressive.
Yeah. Well, it's very Klingon, right? There's no way to say hello.
Yeah. What's the line? The closest the Klingons have to hello is, what do you want?
Yeah. I would think Jankum would understand them, but, Jankum's gone by now. Yeah. He's back at the ship.
Yeah, they'd be on the same page.
This Klingon takes them to his cloaked ship, and he says that he can't leave. Rocktalk says his bird of prey appears to have been turned into a very unsanitary lab, and it is a mess on the inside.
Hey, I think the bird of prey looks really kind of cool. It looks like my kind of development environment.
Oh my God, there is just crap everywhere. Open vials of liquid. It's a mess.
No, it is chaos development.
Yeah, but also unsanitary.
Well, I would think, if you're doing biological research, that's probably not so good. When you're doing electronics,
Yeah, it's just stuff everywhere.
Yeah, it tends not to go off or evolve into unpleasant things.
Right. Rocktalk finds some plans with tribbles on it, and the plans say something about genetic manipulation and hormonal retrovirus, so she realizes that he's a scientist, which makes her very excited. A very messy scientist.
A creative one.
He tells them he's a geneticist sent by Chancellor Martog. Yay, Martog.
Yay, Martog, exactly.
My favorite Klingon.
The greatest Klingon.
So he was sent by Martog to find a way to defeat their ancient blood enemy, the Tribble. Oh my God, so awesome.
As Odo said, the great Tribble hunt.
It's so funny because, we talked about this on Deep Space Nine, but I always liked Worf. I was never really sure that I liked the Klingon episodes. And then Deep Space Nine introduced me to Martog, and suddenly, huge Klingon fan.
Martog was such a fantastic character and such a great portrayal.
Just the best Klingon.
Well, that was always the great thing about J.G. Hertzler playing Martog. Not only did he get a Klingon, but he also, I think, got the subtlety of Klingons of up front, they are all bluster and they are larger than life. They will fight and die for the empire and glory. And then when they're dealing with the family, like when he would talk to Worf, he would dial it back and it would be like a quiet Klingon. But it showed that there was more to Klingons than just the bluster.
Right.
And that to me was always the difference with Gowron. Gowron, we only ever really saw the bluster because he was such a politician. He was always trying to compensate for the fact he was a terrible Klingon. But Hertzler just nailed Martog.
There's a great Klingon episode in Deep Space Nine called Once More Unto the Breach, which is
yes,
just one of my all-time favorite Star Trek episodes, and it's a really good Klingon episode. And if you haven't seen it, I would recommend that you watch it.
Fantastic acting.
And it shows a lot of what you're talking about here, and it also shows some of the politics within the Klingon Empire and how it really impacted them. So it's a great episode.
Oh, yeah.
And there's also humor in it. You know, it's really good. It's really good. All right, yeah, let's get back to Prodigy.
Yeah, I suppose we should.
So this guy thought he found a way to slow the reproduction of the Tribble, but instead he's made giant mutant tribbles.
Mutant tribbles.
He's been there for years and is very frustrated when Rok-Tahk takes 2 seconds to look at the problem and sees the issue right away. She's like, oh, you just are missing this one thing. Oh, my God.
Well, was it episode 1 where Rok-Tahk actually discovered a way of making the tribbles or slow their reproductive cycle?
Right, yeah. That was like, was that her thesis or something to get into Starfleet?
She was making a dissertation or something, yeah.
Yep. Majel, of course, very logically reminds them they aren't here to play with tribbles, but to find the bosonite.
Vulcans.
The Klingon says the bosonite deposit is in the heart of the tribble's nest, so they don't really have any choice but to play with the tribbles.
Yep.
Rock says, this sounds like a problem-tunity.
That has to be word of the series now. It's a problem-tunity.
It's so Rok-Tahk. It's adorable. She says releasing the new virus into the nest should solve the problem sooner. So she gets to work in the lab, but because it's such a mess, she ends up contaminating her work with a soiled tissue she uses when sneezing from all the dust.
Yep.
Now we're going to have a new problem-tunity.
Yes, because they zoom in on it and show it growing.
Yeah, you know it's bad. Back on the Protostar, we find hologram Janeway is unable to heal Zero. Even the biobeds aren't helping. Jankum uncomfortably says that it could be worse, but probably not. I love Jankum so much. But after some awkward conversation, he does say that when he finds something he can't fix, he builds himself something better, and he holds up his multi-purpose hand.
So despite having a corporeal body, Zero has no healing abilities?
Well, they did say that the body wasn't going to last. It was something about the rings around the planet, right? Was what was sort of keeping them all in good condition. Yeah. And I guess once they left the rings, then the bodies just deteriorate. It's surprising they can't be fixed at all.
Yeah, especially as Rock was pointing out that they were just made from proteins. So, can they not replicate the proteins? I guess that could be part of it.
I'm hoping when they get back to Voyager, maybe the Doctor has something he can do. Or this just might be a part of the story that they were able to use this body for a while, but then have to find another solution or build a new solution.
Can they go back to that planet for a recharge? Just fly through the rings?
Can you just give me a different body? I mean, every time I hurt something, I'll just come back here?
Get a refresh?
Yeah, I think we talked about that, right? The 10th one is free, something like that. Back down on mutant Tribble planet, Majel and Gwen are having a chat, and Majel realizes that Gwen is worried about her home planet. Majel understands. She says she feels displaced and doesn't know why she's here either. They have a nice chat, and then they hear some screams from inside the ship. And now we meet a new creature that Rock has accidentally created. Once they catch it, of course, they find a cute little mutant creature that is part Brickar, which is Rock species, and part mutant Tribble.
Do you think this is a little bit of an Easter egg? Because in the Star Trek short, The Trouble with Edward, we learn that the tribbles were actually spliced with human DNA to increase their reproductive cycle. So this is kind of a play on that, with now they've been spliced with Brickar genes, and we end up with this very cute little creature.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all those things are probably connected. And this is the exact type of chaos that this crew creates.
Oh gosh, yes. It really is, isn't it?
Yes. It's like we laugh on Voyager how we think after Voyager leaves whatever group of people they've been involved with, we're pretty sure they've left behind absolute chaos. And I think this is the same thing that's going on with the Prodigy crew.
Oh, good point. I will advise people to watch The Trouble with Edward. I think it might have been my favorite of the Trek shorts.
Oh, well, that can be your opinion, but it isn't right. But it can be your opinion. It was too goofy for me.
If you are correct, I would agree with you.
Yes, spoken by one of my managers when I was quite young. I haven't said that in a long time. If you were right, I would agree with you. Okay, dude. That was very funny. It was a good line. All right, here comes another gem from TOS. And we've put the serum onto some quadrotriticale grain. This, of course, is from the original Tribble episode of TOS.
Yes.
We actually had to go back because James was convinced that's not how they pronounced it on the original series, but it actually is. It does sound the same.
Yes, it was quite correct. Also, interestingly, an episode where Kirk is an absolute jerk.
He is. He's terrible in that episode.
Yeah.
And the grain itself is not important to this story, but they just wanted to connect it to that, original episode. So that was cute.
Right, because tribbles really like that grain.
The crew is playing with this new creature that Rock accidentally created, and it has 6 limbs, but Rock is a little standoffish because she says this sort of makes her question her own skills.
Well, she feels it's her mistake.
Yes, exactly.
It's a funny reaction from Rock, like she's embarrassed by it.
Dal at this point calls the new creature a Bribble, which everyone thinks is cute except for Rock Talk. She's not into it.
No.
But a short time later, when they're setting up all the grain as bait around the outside of the Tribble nest, she does find the Bribble squeaks to be cute.
It wears her down.
Yeah, because now she's like, aw, very Rock Talk. So we need to lure the Tribbles out of the nest and then put some good old transporter enhancers in place and beam out the bosonite. It's funny, but I'm sure if you're a kid, like if you're Mahi or you're watching this as your first Star Trek, those kind of things, they're meaningless to you. But to the old Star Trek nerds, it's like, oh my God, it's a transporter enhancer. It's so awesome.
Yeah, this is pieces of classic Trek. But at the same time, it's a great way of introducing the technology of Trek for the people who've never watched it before.
Yeah, and there's no reason to just, stop and explain everything like that. It's a transporter enhancer, off we go.
It's just part of the world.
Yeah.
That's one of the arguments that's always made about Star Wars. It doesn't need to explain anything. It's just there.
Right. And that's even how, the first Star Wars started, right? The very first movie.
Right.
Well, of course, this plan does not go to plan, because that's how it goes.
It's the Prodigy crew. Of course it can't go to plan.
As the Tribbles suck up the food quickly and start coming back into the nest, everybody's panicking. We do get the bosonite to the protostar, though, so that's good news. But the Tribbles roll in and disrupt the extraction of the people.
And naturally. Sometimes I feel this is also a show that is the spiritual successor and sequel to Voyager, because remember how we talk in Voyager? Mm-hmm. There must be moments where Janeway is saying to herself, can we not just catch a freaking break?
Yeah. Well, that's what Jankum says every time they beam down to a planet. And he's like, oh, man, why can't we go to Ryza?
Can it go right for once?
No, it really can't. I know somebody wrote us an email one time and said, well, the stuff that goes right, they don't make episodes about that. All the other days, everything's going great.
Yes.
I mean, it's a good point. Because who would want to watch that? That would get boring after a while. So Gwen and Dal are trying to escape when the rest of the team comes in, sort of phasers blazing.
Yes.
But it's not stopping the Tribbles. The Klingon decides, here we go, Klingons. The best solution is to destroy the bosonite vein, kill all the Tribbles and the crew and everybody all at the same time. Very Klingon.
Well, it's a glorious way to go. It would guarantee his place in Core, fighting an enemy of the Empire for glory.
That's true.
From a Klingon perspective, what's not to like?
Exactly. But Rock Talk stops him. She's not into this. She said there's always another way.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to die with his mission in failure, of course, because he's a Klingon. They manage to restrain him.
Naturally.
And, of course, at the absolute last second, the new mutant baby creature, the Bribble, starts communicating with the Tribbles, and they all recede. It turns out Rock's mistake actually helped.
Yes, it has the ability to communicate.
It speaks Tribble.
And it's protecting its creator. That's a little bit Frankensteinian, isn't it?
Oh, true. So now the protostar warps away with everyone happy to see each other and Zero sporting a cane.
Yeah.
Turns out Rock's retrovirus worked after all. It just took a little bit longer than expected, so even the Klingon gets to leave. And now everyone is standing and looking at the new proto-core, and Rock Talk in her log is talking about not giving up because even wrong answers can sometimes lead to new discoveries. We fire up the engines and we chart a course to Voyager. And everybody cheers, including us.
Yes.
And that's the end of the first episode, or of episode 13, I should say.
Okay. Shall we move on to episode 14?
We definitely should.
And this was the episode that was shown at the Comic-Con Prodigy panel. The audience reaction was fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun to watch it there. It was a little bit like watching a movie, or in a movie theater, right? Because everybody wanted to be there watching it. Everybody was excited. It had a real cinematic quality about it, including there are some parts in the episode, right? That felt like you were really in a movie theater.
Yes.
That was the first way I saw it. And now the second way was on my iPad in Glasgow. So I've yet to actually see it on one of our televisions in my house.
Episode 14, Cracked Mirror. The Protostar is back up to speed. They're traveling at proto-warp, and the crew is all in their stations on the bridge, and it feels like a real throwback to Season 1. Except now there's a Vulcan patrolling the bridge.
Yeah, why is Dal back in the captain's chair?
Well,
there's nowhere else for him to sit.
He and Majel played rock, paper, scissors for the captain's chair, and he managed to win.
Right.
They arrive at Voyager, which, if I remember correctly, was 3,000 light years away, which we learned in the episode before last. So it's showing just how fast the proto-warp is.
Yeah, because if 70,000 light years was going to take them 70 years, was it? Then this should have taken them 3 years.
When they drop from warp, we get kind of a distortion effect, and it triggers Gwen's temporal stabilizer. So, yet another indicator, something is off. Chakotay now arrives back on the bridge, and he's had a shave. He no longer looks like a beach bum.
I like the beard. When Dal and everyone sees Chakotay and he's all cleaned up, he says something like, "Oh, here's somebody who's ready to be sent to the Admiral's ready room." I'm sorry, was that a sexual innuendo on Prodigy? Or did I read too much into it?
Well, that might be a nod to the Q episodes in Voyager.
Well, maybe, but I don't think so, because it doesn't have anything to do with Q. Maybe it was more like, they were just sort of ribbing him for having, or, for making it seem like maybe he has a crush on Janeway or something. I don't know, but there was something to that joke.
Well, don't you remember that Q and Janeway had a relationship?
Q and Janeway don't have a relationship.
Yes, they did. The whole bit about I'd like to see you in the ready room.
We can't talk about that. I have no memory of it.
Oh.
But, okay, well, we have to get farther in Voyager for me to get that part of the joke. But anyway, there's something funny with that comment.
Beaming over to Voyager, the Doctor is excited to see them and says the Admiral will want to see them immediately. And in comes the root of all Starfleet evil, Admiral Jellicoe.
He's not that evil. We've had more evil admirals on Star Trek. But anyway, here it's a surprise because there's no Janeway, and instead, it's Jellicoe.
Real name, Dick Jones, formerly of OCP. Turns out, Janeway, Nome, and Tysis all perished on the Infinity trying to rescue Chakotay.
And we know that's not what happened because the Loom ate the Infinity.
Because they all remember that Janeway is alive, the Doctor is concerned they may be experiencing shared psychosis.
Isn't that always the first thing he guesses?
It seems to be like the first thing that anybody in Starfleet does is doubt what's going on. Like, remember the Harry in the alternative timeline?
Yes, right. You're clearly crazy. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
This crap happens all the time.
Have you read any after-action reports about what happens on starships? Majel hypothesizes that they are on the incorrect Voyager. The Doctor believes they are in a different reality, and it's his duty to return them to their captain. They head to sickbay so they can do some scans, but they all can't fit in the turbo lift. So Zero and Rock wait to go second. On the way down, Gwyn experiences another distortion wave.
Never good.
Arriving at the lower deck, it looks completely wrecked. There's gear strewn everywhere, and they even have to force the sickbay door open. Jankum jokes that they've really let the place go, and he approves. I think Jankum might be a little bit of a chaos engineer. Yeah. I knew I liked him for a reason.
Yeah, he is definitely into the chaos. This was the part that I felt was really cinematic because it was so atmospheric and you have these really distant sounds of creaking to tell you that something is wrong and it's dark, and I just really liked it.
Well, where they did the animated camera angle as well, it felt very much like what they would do on the TV show.
Right.
To give you those sort of sense of atmosphere.
Absolutely.
In the darkened sickbay, they find someone skulking around. And it's O'Connor, who's immediately friendly, saying, "I know you guys." He asks them, "Where's the big rock girl?" Saying, "I liked her."
Oh, well, yeah, she was probably the one who was nice to him.
As Gwyn tries to call Rock and Zero, we see them descending in the turbo lift. As the door opens, the ship and crew is all in the green uniforms of the Enterprisians from All the World's a Stage. I really love how the uniforms, they're all stitched in the same style as All the World's a Stage episode, where they look like they're sort of handmade.
It's so funny.
That would be a cool cosplay, just because of how the uniform looked.
Mm-hmm.
As they stand in the lift, one of the Enterprisian crew says, "Someone alert Captain Tuvix." And this is the point I just about died laughing.
I mean,
do you remember the reaction in the room at the convention was priceless?
Yeah, a real Star Trek Voyager Easter egg. Although I have to admit, at this point, I was worried that it was going to turn into an episode about Tuvix, and I'm like, oh, no, thank you. But that's okay. I didn't get that.
Back on the wrecked Enterprise, Magel's figured out that they've stepped into a new reality. Dal questions O'Connor about what he meant when he said how dangerous they were, and O'Connor explains. The weapon on the protostar infected every Starfleet vessel in the quadrant. The entire Federation was torn apart.
Another reality.
Exactly. Chakotay asks if he came across Admiral Janeway, but O'Connor says he's the only Starfleet officer he's come across, and the ship was just left for scrap. And during all of this, O'Connor is like pulling pieces off the ship and putting them in a bag.
The one thing I really like about O'Connor is how much Dal dislikes him. It's very funny.
Well, I think maybe some of that comes from Dal's upbringing or the time he spent with the Ferengi. He sees a similar kind of pattern.
Well, but he really didn't like him in that previous episode because he was cozying up to everyone else as well.
Oh, that's true.
He was a little threatened.
He was also, yes, he was very charming.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was a little threatened by him. And he was Captain O'Connor as well.
Oh, yeah.
Through the observation deck, Murph now alerts them to what looks like giant cracks forming in space, and it looks like broken glass. It's kind of a nice effect.
Yeah.
Gwyn suggests that because the fabric of the universe was weakened, the proto-warp jump punched a hole right through that fabric. And we see an outside shot of this crack passing through Voyager.
And we just keep on creating chaos. Magel calls it an interphasic rift, which is a term I love. Sometimes the technobabble is just chef's kiss.
Well, they make some great words up.
Yes, exactly. And Jankum at this point also says, great, all our past mistakes are coming back to haunt us. Nailed it.
We get a quick explanation that every deck could be a different reality, and it's tied to their quantum signatures. Magel, being a brilliant Vulcan, figures out how to fix the rift, and Chakotay agrees. And as Dal puts it, I have no idea what you're saying, but I like the way you're saying it. I don't think Chakotay knows either. He's just learned to agree if it sounds good.
Maybe. Yeah, I think Dal's line is great. It's sort of spot on for him. Like, I don't need to understand the science, but you said it really positively, so I think it's a good thing. So I did like that.
You're very confident. It's got to be right.
Exactly. And he does appreciate confidence. This thing that Chakotay said about their quantum signatures, right, sort of being tied to the anomaly, and that's maybe an explanation for why they can pass through all of the different realities.
Yeah.
I've needed a technobabble reason why they kept staying the same while everything around them changed, because it's not the first time it's happened.
Right.
And I've been sort of complaining about that. Like, I don't understand why that keeps happening. So here's at least, here's a made-up reason, which is as good as any made-up reason on Star Trek.
Well, it's kind of like how, in Parallels, Worf remained consistent, no matter which universe he was in.
Right, right.
As is tradition in Star Trek, they need to use the deflector dish to fix all of this.
Now that you've pointed that out to me, I laugh every time they're going to use the deflector dish. It's like just what James says. You can use it to fix anything.
Exactly. So they have to get to the bridge, which unfortunately is 8 decks above. The worry now is that Gwyn cannot survive crossing 8 different realities. Dal suggests Gwyn stay, but she touches his hand, telling him she can handle it, and they're sticking together. And I thought that was really touching.
Well, that's what Wesley told them to do, but also they didn't stick together because Rock and Zero are somewhere else.
Yes.
Stick together as much as possible.
Try to stick together.
Yeah.
In the end, they get O'Connor to beam them to the bridge. He's pretty sure the transporter will work because he's sold a few parts of it to the Andorians. After a kick or two, the transporter does work, and they beam somewhere, but not onto the bridge. And in walks a short-haired Janeway who has a Borg-style implant, like 7 of 9, flanked by masked guards. And if you're familiar with it, she's wearing the Terran Empire badge.
Okay.
I believe the crowd went absolutely nuts at this point.
Because again, the Star Trek nerds knew what was happening immediately.
This was like the reaction you saw at the Marvel panel with the Robert Downey Jr. reveal.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone just went crazy. It's Mirror Universe Janeway.
Can we discuss the look of Mirror Janeway?
Oh, we have to at this point.
First, hair, different.
Yep.
Uniform, scorching hot. Borg-Implant, intriguing.
Fantastic.
Scowl, flawless.
Agreed. Plus the little, like, flourishes. There's such a great look to the Mirror Universe characters.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Discovery really embraced that.
There was a lot of Mirror stuff on Enterprise, which you and I never watched, so some of that stuff is lost on us. But to me, certainly the baseline for the Mirrorverse comes from Discovery more than anywhere else.
Well, it's not just Janeway, because she's joined by First Officer Chakotay, sporting a goatee. Another huge Easter egg to the original series.
Yeah.
Or the old scientists with the evil goatee Spock.
Yeah. You gotta have the goatee, or you're not evil enough.
So awesome.
He's quite ripped as well. I am curious about why he would have the same exact tattoo, but we don't go into that story, because it probably wasn't, in honor of his father, like it was on the original show. Yeah. Or the original Voyager.
Well, it could be, because it's in honor of his father's first conquest of an alien planet.
Okay.
Prime Chakotay gives a quick description that they're in the Mirror Universe. Humanity here is bent on galactic conquest, and the locals are not friendly. Mirror Janeway wants to question them on how they're traveling into the Mirror Universe, because they're supposed to be protected against this. She calls it a security breach for the new Terran Armada. Goatee Chakotay is going to torture them in the Agonizer for answers.
Fortunately, they didn't want to show the kids being tortured in the Agonizer on this cartoon, which I think was a good decision.
Yes. Well, I think we need to discuss this. First of all, it was pretty funny that Jankum mocks the Agonizer, asking if the name Mean Machine was taken. And then the second thing is, so, how did the Terran Empire reform?
Yeah.
In Deep Space Nine, we learned that sometime in the last 100 years, the Terran Empire was destroyed by a Cardassian-Klingon alliance who took over Earth. We know from Deep Space Nine there was a Terran rebellion, and according to the timeline, in 9 years, they've defeated the Klingon alliance, and they've rebuilt the Terran Empire.
And Voyager.
Yes. Janeway even says the new Armada.
Right.
So I guess that the Mirror Universe, the Terrans, learned nothing from their experiences, and they're back to being the old empire that they always were.
Well, it's the same generation if it's only a handful of years, so it would make sense that they hadn't learned anything. And look, the Armada might be made up of ships that they took from the Cardassians and the Klingons, right? It might not necessarily be a bunch of new ships that they built. I also wondered if maybe this is a parallel mirror universe, although Wesley didn't mention there was, a mirror and a mirror too, but maybe there could be. But you kind of have to headcanon your way around a lot of things, I think, to get there.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at it like we saw in Parallels. There's hundreds of different parallels. So why wouldn't the same thing be true of the Mirror Universe?
Yeah, it's possible.
This is one where maybe they defeated the Cardassians, or the Terran uprising against the Alliance happened 50 years ago. So, they've rebuilt from there. It's tough, but maybe it does work. I mean, remember Smiley, the Mirror Mars O'Brien? He built the Defiant out of what seemed to be scraps and bits and pieces and built a full starship. So maybe these people are actually really good. So sort of 9 years is like, that's more than enough time to rebuild the fleet and build ships like this new Voyager.
Maybe. I think they gave us limited information because they really wanted to do a Mirrorverse thing, right?
Yeah.
And they really needed it to involve Chakotay and Janeway. That was important. And trying to get new people into the show. They don't know anything about it anyway. And they gave us just enough info so that people like you and me could just headcanon our way all over the place to try to find the answer. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, right?
Agreed.
I mean, I was like, okay, maybe that Voyager also got flung into the other quadrant and they don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And there are so many different things that we can come up with, which is why I think it's short and they didn't flood us with info.
Right. We have discussed this a lot.
And probably will continue to.
It's just great to see the Mirror Universe back. The sad part is the Terrans have learned absolutely nothing, but at the same time, The Mirror Universe and the evil Terrans are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And Mirror Janeway does look fantastic.
And she looks great. And Chakotay looks great, too.
How about cosplaying that?
That's for a different podcast.
Well, Chakotay has been tasked with interrogating them, and he picks the cute one to interrogate first, meaning Murph, which is a very poor choice, because as security officer, Murph immediately beats the crap out of Chakotay, which was awesome.
Yeah, I love how they're all like, oh, not the cute one, not Murph, all knowing, yes, please, Murph, he's the right one.
Oh, it was too funny as, Murph fakes being afraid and then just does that hiss and begins stomping Chakotay.
Yep.
Prime Universe Chakotay has now put on the mirror uniform and is using some grease to add a fake goatee. And it's great how Murph does the same thing.
Now, the grease on the face only works in a cartoon, but I'll allow it.
They almost manage to fool Mirror Janeway, but naturally it all comes unstuck, and a chase ensues with a phaser-wielding evil Janeway. I like this Janeway so much. It's like Killy Tilly.
This is not unlike the regular Janeway. She loves a phaser. She only goes on missions when the phasers are involved.
That's a really good point. The crew end up hiding in Cetacean Ops, but the whale calls security on them, even saying, "All hail the Terran Empire."
The whale also has a scar, because that's what everybody has in the Mirroverse.
Another great line from Jankum as well. Even the whales are evil.
Great.
They manage to trap Janeway and Chakotay behind a force field, and they make it to the bridge. Chakotay begins recalibrating the deflector, but we hear the chittering sounds and see the loom is starting to break through the cracks in reality.
That's so good, because now they've really established that enough that we just have to hear that sound to know what it is. It's almost like when you hear the Borg theme, you know what you're in for.
So, can the other people in the other realities see the crack?
Yeah, I wondered that. I don't know.
Gwyn recalibrates the shields to match the loom's phase variance, which is what Janeway did with the phasers in the Devourers of all things, and they now wait for the deflector. The shields are holding the loom off for now, and Mirror Janeway breaks back into the bridge, telling the phaser-wielding Murph, "Drop it, goobag."
Oh, goobag.
Chakotay appeals to the Mirror Janeway, and she sees the loom trying to break through the shield. So they can at least see the loom, even if they can't see the crack.
Yeah, I always wonder how they can see things from the outside. Like, at least on Discovery, they had those little droid things that would fly around.
Yeah.
But we do somehow see the loom.
Yeah, there is the ongoing question across all of Star Trek of where exactly is the camera for that?
Yeah, that's not new to Prodigy.
Chakotay appeals to the Mirror Janeway, and she sees the loom trying to break through the shields. There's a quick explanation that if she allows them to fix the rift, everything will return to normal. And as Dal says, and we can pretend like none of us ever met.
Yes, and that's what will happen.
The loom is now breaking through and Mirror Janeway to the rescue. In the captain's chair, she starts phasering the loom, driving them back. Janeway loves a phaser.
Yeah.
Mirror Janeway says, "This doesn't mean we're friends." And Chakotay replies, "No, but I'll take what I can get." Gosh, Mirror Janeway has such a great snarl.
I know.
One of the loom makes it through, and time starts to slow. Only Gwyn is unaffected, and as the loom closes in on her, she manages to hit the deflector control. We get a nice little effect of the shockwaves spreading out from Voyager, and Gwyn reappears on the transporter pad when they originally beamed over to Voyager.
And everyone is back together now.
Yes.
Including Majel, who just disappeared into the ether when they beamed over to the Mirrorverse.
Yeah, what happened to Majel?
I assume there's a reason they didn't want her to see the Mirrorverse.
Yeah.
The character.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
As you said, they're all back together, and Zero remarks they were just growing used to Captain Tuvix's Vulcan-Talaxian fusion cuisine.
I love that we never saw Tuvix. That's actually hilarious.
That was pretty funny. Quick observation here. Don't you think the team that would actually fixed all of this would have been Rock and Zero? Plus, they have a friendly, smart captain, and those two are brilliant.
Yeah, that's interesting. But they didn't tell that story. I don't know. It's strange. Like, why did they separate everybody? Was there a particular reason? Did they just not want that many people in the Mirrorverse story? I don't know.
I think that would make sense. It might become a little bit overloaded if it was all of them.
Yeah, maybe.
And it did give you an opportunity to show the Enterprisians and Tuvix.
That's true. But also there is the thing, too, where Zero is injured.
Yeah.
So maybe the episode then would have been about trying to keep them safe.
Oh,
Just a
interesting. And just like the beginning of the episode, the Doctor is very happy to see them again. And in comes the Admiral. Except this time, it's the right one, Admiral Janeway. She's very happy to see Chakotay, and they hug. And Janeway tells him he's home.
Aw.
Jankum begins telling Gnome about the mirror universe, and Del tells Gwyn, whatever the universe throws at us, I'm glad we're in this one, with you. Gwyn just responds, me too.
Aw.
And we close with both awesome-looking starships flying side by side. The end.
Well, let's talk about what stood out in these 2 episodes.
Well, the Klingon scientist. We don't often get to see Klingon scientists. I liked how, at heart, he was still Klingon. Oh, mission's failed. I'm going to blow everything up.
That's my first note as well, because on the Deep Space Nine podcast, we frequently wondered, were there non-soldier jobs for Klingons?
Right.
Yeah. So I did like that development. And it's kind of funny that while he's maybe not the greatest scientist, he's doing it for honor. And
yes,
he's as chaotic and messy like all the Klingons.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He embraces the same Klingon values. It's actually really nicely done.
Yeah. I'm glad the Mirroverse part was short. I thought that was appropriate. Like, we didn't need a whole bunch of episodes about it. It was almost like an acknowledgement of the Mirroverse, and then we move on.
Well, it's the perfect vehicle to bring in the Mirror Universe. And, this is one of the things about Voyager. There are no Mirror Universe Voyager episodes.
Well, same with TNG.
Yeah. It's an opportunity they couldn't miss. And they really embraced it well. I mean, seeing the Mirror Universe Janeway, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing that stood out about Janeway is she's got that Borg-Implant, right? And obviously it could mean that Janeway was assimilated at some point. But could it actually be that she wears it almost like a badge of honor because she defeated 7 of 9 or something? Or, like it's a trophy.
Oh, that would fit perfectly with the mindset of the Terran Empire. We defeated the Borg. I am wearing their skeleton.
Right.
I would love to see her ready room. I bet it's like, remember the Kazon where they had like the heads and equipment from people they defeated in their trophy room? I bet that's like Janeway's ready room. There's probably the Borg Queen's head on a spike, bits of 7 of 9.
Yeah, that's a very Mirrorverse thing to do.
I mean, it could be that it's actually functional Borg technology and she's using it because it gives her better targeting. She can shoot better with her phaser.
Maybe, yeah.
There's a lot we could read into that.
Absolutely.
But it's good to see the Empire back.
Right. I'm not sure all of the timelines make sense as having been changed at the same point. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes. They're all at exactly the same point in time across the dimensions.
Which doesn't make sense for the Tuvix joke.
Really? You don't think so?
Tuvix dead by this point. By where the timelines broke apart.
Yeah.
Tuvix is no more.
Oh, there's a way to headcanon that. Tuvix wasn't separated. Janeway decided that she shouldn't return Neelix and Tuvok into their separate part, and she just let Tuvix live. And he ended up becoming a effective Starfleet officer.
Right, I'm just saying that the divergence of the timeline is not all at the same point. Because that would have meant that something had to diverge earlier, or that was a completely different parallel, not just a different time.
I'm going with that's a completely different parallel.
Gotcha.
That's a radically different parallel.
Okay, all right.
I mean, because why would the Enterpriseians be wearing the green uniforms?
Yeah, that's true. Nostalgia.
Nostalgia. Maybe it's a religious exemption that they get.
Oh, Lord. It's like the ship full of Vulcans. Now we've also got a ship full of the Enterpriseians.
Led by Tuvix.
Yeah, a cult leader, like Gul Dukat. Well, do you have anything else that stood out to you in these episodes?
I'm going to go back to something I mentioned. I think Rock and Zero, they would have figured out how to fix everything before the other crew. Rock and Zero together, geniuses.
That's true. I wonder if the Loom, though, were attacking Gwen specifically.
Oh.
Because they always go for her.
Right. She's the ultimate red flag for a temporal anomaly.
So the urgency wasn't necessarily in the universe that Rock and Zero were in, but it was definitely in the one that everybody else was in.
Oh, so they could have been working on it, but at a slower pace.
Well, they were having dinner, you know.
Tuvix wanted to cook for them. Yeah, makes sense now.
It's like in past tense when we kept joking about how happy Dax was, you know, having champagne and caviar outside of the sanctuary districts.
Hey, Dax was living the best life. She was hanging out with the 1%. She was living the high life.
That's right.
Really, if you want one thing that stood out, it's episode 14.
Yeah. It kind of makes episode 13 fade a little bit into your memory because 14 is so big. Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing is just the reaction of the audience in the panel was amazing. Everybody who was there, it was either a Trek fan or was a Prodigy fan. And seeing this was just mind-blowing.
Except the woman next to us who was just a Kate Mulgrew fan.
Yeah, well, that's totally acceptable.
Yeah, that's totally acceptable. Okay, let's move on to feedback and hear from Jeff X-Force 11.
Hello, Star Trek fans. This is Jeff, X-Force 11, leaving my feedback about Prodigy, a Tribble called Quest, and Cracked Mirror. So, I enjoyed getting to see this Klingon scientist fighting and studying the tribbles in a different way than what we've seen, and getting to see this new fusion of tribbles and rock talk here with her creation. And it was just a fun episode, but it did bring up the point that I talked about earlier in the season with Zero, and would medical know how to treat them in this new body? And it seems like it's not the case. So it seems like the traditional medicine that they have can't treat their injuries. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go forward with this. Then in the Cracked Mirror episode, we get the reality hopping crew. And we get Tuvix, least talked about, not seen, and we get to see the Mirror Universe. And it's interesting to see that the Mirror Universe has put in safeguards to prevent our universe from crossing over, but yet we're able to. So that was a neat spin on things, and we finally get Janeway and Chakotay reunited. So 2 really fun episodes, and I'm just loving this season. All right, X-Force is out.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it as always.
Yep.
Now let's hear what our kid correspondent Mahi thought of these 2 episodes. Very curious to hear what she has to say about the Mirroverse.
Yes, this is going to be her first introduction to the Mirroverse.
Mahi's personal log, stardate 11324.4. It all begins with a mistake, but ends up as a great lesson and a very cute pet. As our smart scientist in training, Rocktalk tries to help this Klingon scientist, Kruang. She creates one of the cutest, cuddliest creatures that combines her DNA, Bikar, and the Tribble to be appropriately named Bribble. Rocktalk, who is usually the most positive one, takes it really hard on herself. But the team, as always, is very supportive of her and helps her overcome her emotional block to create the retrovirus successfully. This episode has the same message that my swim coach always says. We win, we learn. We lose, we learn. While the retrovirus solution was still doing its work, the team finds themselves in the middle of the Tribble lair, surrounded by the whole clan of Tribbles. With none of the Star Trek tricks working in this situation to help them, and the Klingon scientist, Dr. Kruang, losing his calm, Bribble comes to their rescue. Bribble shows us how communication can help us solve a complicated situation. Bribble saved the day, and as Rock says, before the right answer, we often find the wrong one. For sure, once we know what is wrong, we can eliminate that option and look for the next one. Didn't Thomas Alva Edison fail 2,774 times before he invented a working light bulb? While the whole episode revolves around this, we do hope Jankum is now finding a way to help Zero soon. Well, having helped the Tribble situation and enough bosonite now, the team is finally on the Voyager. Everyone, especially Chakotay, is eager to meet Admiral Janeway. But as usual, nothing is so straightforward. The team's excitement is dampened when they realize that they have landed in an alternate universe where Admiral Janeway is dead. As they get through multiple universes, they find themselves in the Mirror Universe, where we get to meet evil Janeway and Mr. Goatee Chakotay, her number one. Our good Captain Chakotay's failed Goatee plan and all of the confusion he tried to create reminded me of Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors book my mom got me. It was funny, but Chakotay should have drawn a better goatee. It was too thin. And the Mirror Universe seemed so much like ours, but in the mirror, the whales were evil too. After being caught by evil Janeway, Chakotay's honest statement, because no matter what reality we are in, I could never hurt you, evil Janeway agrees to help them. This shows how much Chakotay respects and cares for Admiral Janeway. And the disco light looms are back too. Using the Star Trek tricks, they all do finally get back to our reality. Whew, what a relief to see Admiral Janeway again. This episode really showed me how we would go across the universe for those who love and care for us. I am now awaiting eagerly to see how the team will fix the timeline and put the protostar in Tars Lamora. With the whole crew now together, we have more brains and brawn. And Mahi's personal log.
Well, thank you, Mahi. That was an in-depth analysis of these two episodes, and I think this shows a very good call on part of the writers of introducing Bribble as the new pet, which clearly impresses the younger audience.
Yeah, she likes the cute and cuddly. But let's see, she had a fact about Thomas Edison, and then she compared it to Shakespeare.
Yeah, I feel a little bit intellectually threatened by a 9-year-old that's already reading Shakespeare.
That's exactly where I was going. Like I listened to that podcast Ruined, and they talk about frequently how dumb they are, and if they got into the situations in the horror movies, they would just die. That's how I felt with Mahi's. When she's talking, I'm like, I might be too dumb. Maybe Mahi should be doing this podcast.
Maybe that's an idea, Mahi doing Shakespeare from a 9-year-old's perspective. Richard III from a 9-year-old's perspective.
There probably are stories like that, like kid stories that parallel that story. I don't know. What do you think she meant when she said when they were stuck in the cave trying to escape once they'd had the bosonite, and she said none of the usual Star Trek tricks worked? What tricks do you think didn't work?
Well, the transporter is always a good one. Using the deflector, being able to use some kind of containment field is another good one.
Yeah.
Phasers as a last resort.
I liked how she interpreted that as communication is what solved that problem.
Yes.
I guess that wasn't exactly how you and I had interpreted it, but I mean, it's legit.
No, that's a very good interpretation of it. I mean, really, that was what happened at the end of the day, that they couldn't use force to solve this situation. And in the end, it became Bribble negotiating with them.
I guess I looked at that almost as a little bit like in the whale movie.
Oh.
Where once the whales heard another whale voice, they went, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The aliens, I guess.
Yeah, that probe, which could have been a whale spaceship.
Well, yeah, now that we see cetacean ops. Could have been.
Precisely.
Yeah. And then interesting that in the Mirroverse episode, I mean, at least she didn't seem like she was even slightly confused about that. She's like, we went to a Mirroverse and we saw evil Janeway and evil Chakotay. La la la. Just another day at the office.
I love the goatee Chakotay and how he needed to make the makeup wider. I mean,
yeah, he didn't try hard enough. Yeah. Exactly.
Going back to another writing point, I think they clearly have introduced the Mirror Universe as just something that flows. So someone without that background of knowing what the Mirror Universe is just accepts it as part of a story. It doesn't seem disjointed, out of place, and just flows. So that's a really nice trick.
Well, this is something Prodigy has done really well.
Yeah.
And I do think it's partly because they just do it quickly. You know, you don't have to be really buried in the lore to understand any of it, you know, and they explain it and they explain stuff super quickly. They just don't dwell on it.
Right.
Because they've only got 20 some minutes to get through. So I think that actually helps them quite a bit. And when they do explain it, when they're introducing something new to the audience, they rarely fill it with technobabble.
Yeah.
They just sort of say, oh, you know, we're in the Mirroverse.
Oh, that's right.
Bad things happen here.
Yeah.
We got to get out. And then we just move on. And I think that's really easy for people who've never, or kids, I guess, who've never seen it before.
Yeah, Chakotay explains it, I think, in one line, isn't it? Where he just says, and the locals aren't friendly.
Yeah, that's all you need to know.
Right. So clearly, Mahi does seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, she definitely seems to be enjoying it, which is good. We only have a couple of podcast episodes left, so hopefully she keeps enjoying it. And wouldn't it be great if we had a season 3?
Honestly, we really do need a season 3. This has been outstanding Trek.
Yeah, and it's not enough.
Agreed.
Then do you have any speculation you'd like to cover before we move on to rating? Because we truly don't know what happens from here.
This is one that I have been thinking about a lot since episode 13. Either Zero will be repaired, or the body will just degrade away and they'll be forced to go back to being a non-corporeal. Having known what it's like to be a fragile biological organism and happy with what they are, having experienced the other side, I'm personally leaning towards the non-corporeal again.
That they go back to the iPod suit?
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think because Jankum said that thing about if you don't have something, you make something better. That's probably what will happen, or at least what they'll try. I did wonder, because, you know, this show can have a dark edge. I did wonder if maybe it might be the end of Zero, which would be quite sad, but it is something that Star Trek does. I hope that's not what they do, because it's a great character. But I tend to agree that they'll end up back in the original suit with a new appreciation for life.
Agreed.
Now, they're feeding into the people who've been shipping Chakotay and Janeway.
Yeah.
I, of course, think she could do better.
Oh, absolutely.
Do we think that we have shipped them, or are they just doing that to play with us?
I'm hoping they're doing it simply to mess with our heads.
Me too.
Because I think as well, because the other side of it is, I feel it's a really inappropriate relationship for an admiral to be involved with a captain.
Yeah, and Kate Mulgrew even mentioned that in the Comic-Con panel we were at, where she said it wouldn't have been appropriate for Janeway to get involved with Chakotay when they were working on the same ship, stuck in the Delta Quadrant. And, I mean, I totally agree with that. They were constantly trying to ship Chakotay with everyone, and he just had zero chemistry with anyone. But also, having to always force these relationships just because they're two characters on the same show, you know, it just feels reductive sometimes, especially in the workplace. Look, I recognize I do not like Chakotay, so I think I'm quite biased in this way. But I don't like him because of the things he does as a leader on Voyager, and you can listen to those episodes for more on that. But anyway, I just don't want them smashed together just because they can. I know there are people just dying for it, but she can do better. I assume we're going there with the story, but I don't think it's appropriate due to their rankings.
Yeah, and I don't like it. They don't have to.
No, they don't have to. In fact, it's silly for them to do it. It's almost just too easy.
Yes, right.
Okay, so is that good for Speculation Corner?
One other speculation, and this maybe doesn't necessarily relate to Prodigy. I would pay McCoy money for Mira Janeway to appear in Section 31.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah, I would like that.
Oh, that would be awesome. Actually have Kate Mulgrew.
Oh, yeah, the actual Kate Mulgrew in the flesh would be really good. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's move on to rating. What do you give these two episodes out of 10?
Okay, episode 13, A Tribble Darkly. I give that one 8.
Okay.
It's a good episode. There's nothing wrong with it. I just felt it was one of those between episodes. But, you know, it was a good episode. It was enjoyable, but it was one of the...
Not memorable.
Exactly.
Okay. And can I guess your Cracked Mirror rating? Does it start with a 1, perhaps?
Wow, are you reading my mind?
Yes.
It's a 10. That is a fantastic episode. It's a great story. It's a great use of the concept of parallels. And it's also a great Mirror Universe episode introducing the Mirror Janeway. Maybe I'm influenced by the way we saw it, but You know, coming back, I watched that one actually 3 times since we went to the panel.
I think we would have enjoyed it the same way.
Because it's a great episode.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really good Star Trek, and it's building on that history.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think it gives the next generation of watchers, it gives them an introduction to the Mirror Universe. And they also have enough explanation. I mean, Chakotay has 1 line, 2 lines in there, where he says about these are the bad versions of humans.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very smartly made episode as well.
I agree. I give the first episode an 8 and the second episode a 10. Although the 8 to me is a little bit higher. I think it's like for you, it's either a 10 and it's great or it's just something else. Whereas I actually did like the Tribble episode because I liked the sort of implication that Rock really struggled with making a mistake. I liked that part of it. And I also liked that finally we found a Klingon who is not just a, warrior. I really quite like that. So I did appreciate that about that episode and we'll give it an 8. And then for the Cracked Mirror episode, I also give it a 10. I thought it was awesome. It was so much fun. And I just liked how punchy it was, right? We just moved through all the different things really quickly. We maybe spent a little bit more time with Okana than we needed to. But other than that, it was bang, bang, bang. And we got to the point really quickly. And there was great humor in there. Lots of good things, right? Lots of memorable things. So,
and such great villains. I mean, the Mirror Universe Chakotay, great villain.
But in the true sort of Trek way, like they did this a lot on the Deep Space Nine Mirror episodes. Yes, they have their evil ways because of the evil place that they live, but they could be talked into things. Sometimes you could have conversations with them to sort of get you on your side, at least momentarily, in order to move ahead with what you needed to do.
Yeah, self-preservation was a big motivator for them. I would argue maybe self-preservation is the only motivator for them.
And think how much that Mirror episode gave us to talk about. We have talked about it so much since we saw it.
Oh, absolutely.
I like that about it.
For Mirror episodes, Pirate Sisko, after beating up the 2 Klingons and standing in the hallway in that iconic pose with both phasers. So awesome.
Oh, you did like that, yeah. Okay, I think that wraps up episodes 13 and 14, and that wraps up my podcasting from Glasgow. Hopefully, and the next time I will be back in San Diego where I belong. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at RebingeIt@gmail.com. You can find us on the socials. We are on Threads, Instagram, and YouTube at RebingeIt. And you can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on ReBinge It and the Star Trek Prodigy podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.
Listen to Janeway.
And don't be a Borg.